Hello, this is Beto Borges with the Community Markets Program of Forest Trends here in Berkeley, California. And today we have Ole Petenya Yusuf, a Maasai leader from the Shompole Community in Kenya. Ole, welcome to California again. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
And we are continuing our series about ecosystem services, payments for ecosystem services for communities. And we want to ask some questions for Ole. Ole, how do you understand ecosystem services? How do you see your communities, Maasai communities in Kenya, benefiting from ecosystem services?
I think number one, many communities are realizing that they have abundant resources, natural resources from the ecosystem that they can use to benefit. And certainly, Shompole Community Trust is an example and a model in that regard, because we are using our wildlife natural resources, pristine landscapes, landscape beauty, to attract tourists, who spend in our lodge, tourism lodge, and pay so much because of those pristine landscapes. And the money goes back into helping the community in various ways. But so I think that's one way to look at it, which is very, very important. We already know the value of wildlife. But we also want to know the value of other resources, like the wetlands. We have a very huge wetland, very important with aquatic bird life, and other species that depend on the water for survival. And this swamp, or this wetland, drains into Lake Natron on the Tanzanian side of the border, and it's a very important area for breeding of the lesser flamingos. It's the only place in East Africa, so it's a very important, vital hotspot in terms of conservation. But who pays Shompole Community for maintaining that swamp that drains into Lake Natron? We really want to be paid for that, because it's not only about wildlife, but it's about other ecosystem services we provide for the world. Because this is not just the flamingos are not for Shompole alone, not for Kenya, but it's a global asset. Because they are migratory, they go to Lake Natron, and to Lake Nakuru, they go to Lake Bogoria, within the country. And the tourists that go from the US and the UK and Europe and all over the world to those places are going to enjoy a very pristine, area with healthy flamingos. But those flamingos are being bred all the way down in Shompole. So it's very important that ecosystem within Shompole is taken care of to provide some other services in other areas that people who want to pay will enjoy.
Oh, I agree with the logic. I think it's absolutely the right of indigenous communities to be compensated. What has been the experience of the Shompole community, the Maasai community, your community? Do they agree with that logic? Do they recognize this as their right to be compensated for the service that you just described?
Certainly, yes. They do agree with the logic, and more importantly, we have the right to the land. So the resources on that land then should be plowed back to benefit the people, or the stewards, or the custodians of the same resources. So, but the question that keeps bogging us down, or keeps coming back to my mind, or to us as a people, is how do we get a value of that wetland? How do we value ecosystem services? Because I think we lack some capacity in terms of determining the value of that particular ecosystem before you tell a potential buyer or person who is willing to pay how much you tell them to pay, because you don't know the actual price or the actual value of that ecosystem. So we agree with the logic, but we really want to know how to determine that price or value of that ecosystem before the buyer or the client who is willing to pay does the actual payment.
We're talking a little bit about payments for ecosystem services, and I know in Shompole, in your community in Kenya, you've done some very innovative things in terms of tourism and communities. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that and how that works.
It's still alive.
Basically in Shompole we're using a triangular sort of relationship between the aspects we do. We have on the one hand biodiversity conservation, conservation. On the other hand, we have tourism, and on the other hand, we have conservation. And we have a very, very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very strong connection between the two. And we have a very str And at the bottom we have poverty alleviation. It's an important issue we're dealing with, using both tourism, it's a way to make economic returns, but basing it on the overall, biodiversity or natural resources that, we have in Shompole. And that is working for us. We're making economic returns that we plow back half of it to enhance the ecological integrity of the environment, but also, more importantly, deal with the poverty alleviation, issues of Millennium Development Goals, health, education, water provision, and many others.
And how does that work? You have a community trust that runs a lodge?
We do have a community trust. The trust is composed of a board of trustees from the community. We have elders, we have the youth, we have women, and also we have other people from the private sector, like the NGOs, from the conservation sector, sitting with us on the board to give advice. And that board of trustees does manage the funds that come from the tourism and goes to the community directly.
How does that go? How do those funds go to the community?
It comes first to a pool fund, and the board of trustees sit on a monthly basis to apportion that money into different community development projects.
So water,
health, we give to education. We employ 8 teachers.
schools.
We go to schools. We actually build schools or provide books or other needed material, and we give a lot of money to bursaries, close to $5,000 a year.
And I've heard you talk about first generation benefits and second generation benefits.
Yeah, yes, the issue of first generation of benefits and the second is, the first one is about investing money where everybody has got direct access. That is the health, water, education, and everything else. And the second generation of benefits is where we give the people direct dividends into their pockets. Because after 5-10 years, of course you cannot build schools every year or for 20 years in a row. You must, at least the projects must be completed at some point, and people really wants to get the money to do other things that what they want in the household level. So we are targeting the main community from the onset, but narrow down to the household level, so that then the impact is felt even at that lower level.
Maybe you can talk about a little bit about how you see the benefits of the wildlife and conservation for your community. Any sort of conclusions? What have you learned in this process of setting up this trust and running this lodge?
Well, one is very important. We have learned several lessons. One, that communities have realized that they have so much resources within their midst. While on the contrary, they normally think we don't have resources. We are begging for money from donors and other people. But suddenly they have realized, wow, we have so many resources within our midst. All that we need to do is organize ourselves in a legal way and set up systems, and there you go. You have now money coming into your pocket or into your community pool fund. Another thing is that we want to diversify our resource base. Like, we are now making a lot of money from wildlife, but we want to make money from other sources like the wetlands. Wetlands are very important biodiversity hotspots for aquatic life, for bird species, and more importantly, the wetland we have in Shompole does drain into a very other ecosystem that helps the lesser flamingos breed in East Africa, which means we also want to be paid for providing or maintaining the integrity of that wetland. But how do we get paid for that? So we really want to have the capacity to be able to value, the ecosystem services, so that we are able to then tell potential buyers or users how much they should pay us in return for maintaining those ecosystems.
So any conclusions you were?
One of my conclusions will be that we encourage communities to be part of this ecosystem marketplace, because I think it's a platform where communities get to interact, share experiences, successes, failures, and that will help you better enhance, your programs in terms of pushing forward the ecosystem services agenda.